All right, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, it's me, Josie. Today is all about imposter syndrome. Very excited to bring this to you. I don't know if there's a single woman, a single client that I've worked with that hasn't suffered some element of imposter syndrome. And so it's some place that I tend to focus most of my introductory trainings on. Today, I have lots of stories, metaphors, imagery, thought processes, techniques, exercises that are going to help you unseat some of these unhelpful tendencies that you can put into practice immediately. That is what I'm all about, is giving you tactical tips so that you can start feeling an uplift in your life right away. So before we dive in, let me just get us grounded. I will be telling you, I'll be giving you all of this training for about 45 minutes. The end, I'll describe what it could look like if you wanted to work with me individually in a small group format, because I think that these are best lessons when they're integrated over time. All right, so let's get started. Let's just start with stating the problem. Let's all get grounded and set the stage. So many in this group and in my other groups are accomplished, distinguished, high-performing women, and yet they feel self-critical. They have self-doubt. They second-guess themselves. They may worry about what other people think. They may really find safety in external validation rather than internal validation. It's not uncommon for those of us who suffer from imposter syndrome to obsess long after interactions are over about what we should have done, what we should have said, or cringing over what we did wrong or that we could have done better. We're so hard on ourselves. And we always think that we should be doing more. So as you're joining the training, I love to keep it interactive. I want you to stay on mute for now, but it helps to use as many modalities as possible to integrate the training rather than just passively listening as if it were a podcast. I invite you to type to me. If you have your chat chain open, you're welcome to say, oh yeah, that's me, or I totally get it, or you can ask a question and I'll try to take those in real time. Interaction is everything. Okay, so you are likely a very high achieving, high performing woman. I sometimes say that we are strong and sensitive, meaning we get stuff done, but we suffer feeling lesser than or modest or worried along the way. So if you find that you compare and despair by looking at other women and think, she's got so much better than me, she's got it handled so much better, or if you have constant worry that you're not good enough for your high level position, or if you have habits of like over preparing to prevent you from looking incompetent, like reading, researching, prepping a lot, especially for a presentation. If you just notice that you feel you're full of self-doubt or second guessing yourself, if you know what imposter syndrome is, then you are in the right place. So I'm going to start with this concept that I teach all of my clients at the outset that I think is really going to help you. So stay tuned. This one's called the saboteur, which is another phrase for that negative inner voice, the inner critic, that can sound like it's on a loop of saying, not so fast, or who do you think you are? Or you can't do that, or it'll never work, or watch out, don't bother, or really toxic negative self-talk like you suck, you're a failure, look, there you did it again, I told you so, no one likes you. I mean, really horrible things that we can say to ourselves. And we might wonder, why do we do this to ourselves? What possible utilization could there be to have such a toxic, negative inner voice? Well, I want to explain a little bit about how this arises, because I think when you really understand why we have it, it'll help you really master overcoming it. The reason why we have negative self-talk or this inner saboteur that tears us down is it's a product of a learning loop. It's a product of our development. It's a product of why we're a high achiever today. That we established in our own experience this desire to go after results, to get praise, to have success, because that felt safe and it felt good. It felt like we were validated. And we wanted to move away from criticism or emotional pain or negative results or failure. We didn't want to feel criticized or ostracized or rejected. That's just normal human brains developing. So your inner critic is actually a safety mechanism from this socialized process. And its whole goal, your brain's whole goal of developing this inner critic is to keep yourself safe and to stay in good graces. So it actually sort of beats you up ahead of time, warning you not to overly risk the status quo or expose yourself so that you avoid potential pain, which is really kind of twisted if you think about it. It's kind of a distorted mechanism where we're constantly layering on pain on ourselves because we're afraid of feeling real pain by risking something in the external world. But that's just brain's braining. That's what I say. It's just your brain on doing the brain thing. And it was encouraged and validated and supported and underscored by all the adults in our lives, right? We got even more of a sense of identity about being a high achiever. We got positive reinforcement from adults, from grandparents, from coaches, from teachers, from figures of authority. And we have developed a really strong desire to keep away from hurt and harm and to try to overachieve for pleasure and for safety. But we don't need this anymore, right? Like, you're a grown adult woman. You do not need the cautionary statements that tell you, be careful, you could get hurt. You can handle all of the texture in your life. It's just that we have an overactive safety mechanism that is holding ourselves back. So I want to start us off with some fun techniques and exercises. It's going to help you break this stuff down right away. The first lesson tonight is that I want to teach you about personification. That if your inner saboteur is just a small sliver slice of the whole you, that's helpful for you to see it for what it is. It's not you, it's just a little negative Nancy part of you. And so personification means that you name it to tame it, that you actually embellish this with a certain identity. I like to think of it as a little gremlin or cretin or an evil garden gnome or some little slimy green-hearted weenie. I've had people name their inner saboteur all sorts of things in effort to overcome it. So think about this for you. Some scared and small little part of you. What would you like to name it? The doubter, the beater, the negator, the weenie genie, the little devil, the slimy saboteur, and actually really sort of like texturalize it, put meat on the bones by seeing it. I see it as like a little grumpy garden gnome. You know those things that people put in their yards? I think they're kind of evil, actually. And when I'm speaking about it, you can see I'm also talking about it in sort of a humorous way or a belittling way. Seeing it as small actually does help you gain mastery of a sense over it. It's like, oh, there it is again. There it is, that little devil. So when you hear that negative voice, that inner critic going on auto repeat, that looping talk that really drags you down, lesson number one is for you to actually conjure up that, oh, there it is. It's not the whole me, it's just that small little warrior inside, and see it for what it is. The second way is for you to actually feel something towards it that helps you parse out the bigger version of you in comparison to this negative piece that's dragging you down. It's sort of what they call in psychology cognitive dissonance. It's like you separating yourself out and feeling lovingly pathetic towards this small little ridiculous version of your brain. It helps you break the spell that it wants to cast on you. So if you first personify it, then you start speaking to it and think, oh, you silly little thing. Oh, you negative little thing. I see you there. I know that you're just trying to keep me safe, but you're just tearing me down, and not today. I don't need you today. Thank you, but bye. So this might sound like I'm promoting really ridiculous practices of like almost formulating multiple identities, and maybe I am, but think of how ridiculous it is that we allow this negative voice to run on autopilot unchecked and what it does to our subconscious if we don't address it. So even if this seems like a sort of a crazy notion, I've had clients tell me that it really does help them when they feel that nervousness rise up and that negative inner critic start to speak, for them to see it for what it is, to personify it, and to talk it down. So that's kind of like your first two lessons right out of the gate. Hope you like those. I've got lots more. Okay, another really simple way that you can deal with your own imposter syndrome, your own sense of being lesser than, feeling not good enough, is to actually produce the evidence that that is simply not true. I have some of my clients put like a big piece of butcher paper on the back of their office door so that when their door is closed, they can see it. When the door is open, no one else can. And I have you write every single thing down on there that you can really witness about your own successes. You have multiple certifications, levels of expertise, subject matter competency, um, lessons that you've learned, life experiences, multiple ways in which you have inhabited your life that has grown you to be who you are. And seeing all of those printed down does help balance the scale when your brain wants to think, I'm not enough, she's better than me, I'm comparing and despairing, I don't feel like I'm measuring up. It's actually a very tactical tool for you just to feel like, yeah, you know what? There is a lot that goes on here. I'm just looking at one small subset and comparing myself against her and feeling like I'm not good enough. I like to call in that that there are examples of imposter syndrome that that you might surprise you. Certain figures in history that are so magnanimous and so achieved and so accomplished and so worthy of respect and looking up to have claimed feeling something like imposter syndrome. And knowing this may also help you. Maya Angelou, the famous poet laureate, the famous playwright, the author, so many accolades, and yet she felt imposter syndrome. I wrote this down, a quote that she had said. She said, I feel like I've run a game on everybody and they're going to find me out. Similarly, the great scientist Albert Einstein called himself an involuntary swindler, meaning he didn't mean to dupe anybody. He didn't mean to pull the wool over anybody's eyes, but he fretted that once people realized that he wasn't all that maybe his theories weren't actually going to prove the test of time, that he was going to be found out as somebody who tried to sell an idea. And he felt incredibly exposed, vulnerable, and nervous about his own intellect. Knowing this hopefully helps ease the burden that you're putting on yourself to know that this is almost a universal concept. And the reason why even high performers suffer is because in some degree it's easy for people to be brilliant in their own special way. So I want to tell you another little image or analogy here. I like to, it's a story that I wrote for ourselves called The Bluebird and the Goldfish. Imagine, if you will, these animals that probably don't have a great deal of gray matter. So how could they possibly have a saboteur? But let's just pretend that the goldfish is there in the dining room table in its bowl, swimming around, doing its thing. And as it's swimming around doing its thing, it sees the bluebird flying in the air and landing on the windowsill. And then they regard each other. And the fish looks at the bird and says, "What did you just do? You just used wings with feathers and landed with feet on the windowsill. You were in the air. How do you do that?" Meanwhile, the bird's looking at the goldfish saying, "Are you kidding me? You are swimming in water in a bowl, breathing through gills. How do you do that?" And the fish is like, I don't know, I'm just fishing. I'm just being a fish. And the bird's like, I'm just birding. I'm just being a bird. And both of them disregard, diminish, and sell themselves short for their own inherent brilliance because it's easy for them to be who they are. Are you following? In this little story is the essence of why we doubt ourselves, that the minute we go and be our brilliant, beautiful bluebird feathered self, or our absolutely accomplished, I can swim and breathe through gills self, we think, well, it's easy for me. It wasn't hard. It shouldn't really deserve any attention. So might have Maya Angelou and Albert Einstein felt like, I didn't do anything special. I was just doing me. And now I'm getting all this attention. So this is the lesson here, is for us to actually see our accomplishments, see our natural brilliance, see what's easy for us and claim it, indulge in it a little bit, allow yourself to inhabit that and realize it is special, and not immediately move on from it and feel like you're not worthy to receive praise for being a bird or a goldfish. Are you following? Okay, I think we're on like 4 or 5 now. Let's try this. The fifth way that you can break down imposter syndrome is then to go and harvest the evidence of how you have had impact. So if you have received thank you letters or emails or text chains with praise, or if somebody has really acknowledged something that you've done, you want to actually gather all of that up as if it were a file that you were going to go and consult when that saboteur starts squawking. It helps for us to balance the scales of that negative inner critic, to actually have evidence that helps disprove the doubt that wants to seed. So I say, keep all those hard copies and review them often. Print all the emails that have positive praise in them. Like harvest all the things that you've heard people say. Like take a moment to write it down in a page in your journal so that you can go and review it. And notice the themes. They're true. If you constantly get the same type of praise in feedback, if with performance reviews, your supervisors are always sort of praising you in a similar way, guess what? They're not all conspiring to, give you some inflated ego behind your back and forming their themes for you. It's true. It's true. It's what's absolutely true for them, how you show up in the world. So if you're like me and you instantly are a heat-seeking missile to go look for the areas for growth in your performance reviews or the room for improvement, and then like let yourself feed on that and sort of obsess about that, try something different and recall all of the praise that you get and let that be the governing focal point of contact for you. Okay. Sixth way that you can break down imposter syndrome is actually sort of get into the embodiment of it. If you have like that file folder or that reverie that you can call up of times that you've really succeeded, you've had victory, or people have really acknowledged your successes, graduation day, or when you gave an excellent speech, you got a standing ovation, or you got a bonus or a raise, you want to actually feel into those accomplishments, not just read them, but actually let them move it through your body, the memory of it, and actually sort of be able to conjure that up. Like, where do you feel that pride? Is it like a bursting feeling in your chest, or is it like a warmth that emanates across your shoulders? This is the key to confidence, is actually bringing it into your body that will help you combat the negative spiral that happens when you're swimming in adrenaline and nerves. All right, how about this one? I think we're on 7 or 8. What if your friend came to you with the same types of doubts that you have about yourself? What if your friend spoke to you about herself in the way that your inner critic is speaking to you? What would you say to her? Again, this is a little bit of dissonance, thinking like, oh, I would never let my best friend talk to herself that way. I would totally step in and encourage her and remind her of how brilliant she is and show her all of her amazing gifts. So is it with you? All right, let's try this next one. How about you just talk some sense into yourself? So, when you notice that you're going into a spiral or a negative loop, or you're starting to feel like you're obsessing over something that you perceive as like not good enough, or you're comparing yourself to someone else, or you're feeling like you're just cringing over a mistake that you made, or in some ways that you exposed yourself, it's time to just stop the drama and shake it up. I like to say, get up from your chair and like spin around, go for a walk, go outside, feel the air on your skin, process, interrupt, have a drink of cold water, and then talk some sense into yourself and say, look, nothing has gone wrong. I'm safe. I am okay. I'm good. I'm just having a moment. And give yourself some time to see that this is just that saboteur complex that's very well trodden, that's been very well practiced. Just give it some time to calm down. I'm going to take a drink of water. Okay, next up. Studies show that when you share your feelings of imposterism to someone outside of your network, it can really help erode that sense that you're not good enough. The key here is someone outside of your peer group. If you actually reveal the ways in which you feel lesser than or smaller, and you're speaking to a direct peer, a coworker, somebody that does the same job as you, it's a little bit close, and they might start to coach you or counsel you of ways that you can be better, and that can make it worse. You can feel like instead of encouraging you, they might inadvertently be underscoring your own doubt that you're not good enough by them kind of using their ideas for how you could work on something. And that's not what you need to do in that moment. Your brain is already serving you up enough negativity and enough comparison. But if you go outside your network, go talk to a really good friend and share some of your feelings, it can really help you see more objectively how very accomplished you are. Are you liking these? Okay, I think we're on number 9. I want to talk about now rigidity. That what we have a tendency to do is do this all or nothing talk in our head, where we want to make everything hyperbolic, like it's a failure. It was like I fell on my face, or it was an absolute travesty, or it was horrible. We want to watch the way in which we think back about things and watch that rigidity that is so relative. There's no absolute failure. Even if you made a mistake, it's not a fail. It was just a moment in time. Also, watch the rigidity about stories you tell yourself about what you have to do. I should do, or I need to do, or because you have this identity tied up in helping others, or that you think you should do more, and you're beating yourself up about things. Watch that. That's a sign of rigidity too, and it's not helpful. Okay, so now this one I want to talk about, even though I said that one way that you can help is by sharing your feelings outside your network. Another can actually be connecting with others inside your network. And I'm going to give you kind of some texture here. That when you communicate with your community and you see it as like a sisterhood, like we're all in this together, helping somebody else in a connecting way can help you get out of your own drama. So the minute you're starting to focus on somebody else and how they might benefit from something that you can provide, it's a win-win-win. It helps the other person, it helps the whole organization, and it helps you because your subconscious sees like, oh, I actually really do have something of value to help. And then the last thing I want to say is it really helps for you to connect with yourself, to deeply connect with you, to go deeply within and see your own intrinsic worthiness. There's an image that I sometimes show, and I think I'll bring it up for you now, that I think is so instructive, that helps us see what imposter syndrome is all about. Can you see this image on the left-hand side of the screen? It shows this idea that imposter syndrome is like what we think everybody else has this huge, massive, globe of knowledge, and that what we know is just some small, tiny subset. And notice that like what we think we know, what we think we're expert in is just completely encapsulated by what other people know. So we're not special, we're not unique, we don't know anything that anybody else doesn't know. And therefore we feel small and insignificant and really ready to kind of fold up inside. Really affects our self-concept when we're working with this kind of paradigm. But on the right side, this is reality. Reality is you and what you know are like the center of so many other overlapping areas of competency and capability and subject matter knowledge and experience and best practices and intuition and all of the things that you have lived through your life, that in reality, no one has all the knowledge. No one has complete visibility. No one has all of the answers. And you don't have lesser than others. Your circle is as big as everybody else's, and it touches on, there's actual areas of expertise that you have that do distinguish you from others, and you have many areas of competency that overlap with others as well. So when you see an image like this, another tactic could be draw that image for yourself, like in your journal or on a piece of paper. What do you know? And what do you know a little bit about of a lot of different things that help you see the full picture of what you provide in terms of value to your community, your team, your business, your office, your neighborhood, your family. That can be very helpful for you to see this reality. So in what I'm asking you to do is for you to actually really see for yourself your natural skills and abilities and your trained areas of expertise and value them. Don't say, oh, but everybody else has it, or, it's nothing, or it was easy for me, or you actually really want to move into that area even more intentionally and enjoy it and zhuzh it up a little bit and like layer it on. You will never become conceited. It will not make you a narcissist for you to fully embrace and enjoy being you. There's nothing wrong with it. And if you think there is something wrong with it, it's just another part of your brain braining telling you something that is making you worry that you are not safe. It's telling you if you really go big, if you really expand, then you might expose yourself as a fraud, or other people will have thoughts about you, or people will think you don't really know what you're talking about, or you'll be embarrassed or humiliated, right? It's just another version of the saboteur cropping up, telling you you can't be large and in charge. Okay. That is basically our training in a nutshell for today. Lots of tactical tips. I'd love to see you comment which of these really resonate for you, which of these really work for you. What do you think that you might be able to put into place to help loosen immediately some of that negative inner critic, that self-sabotage, that saboteur? Because it's all about putting it into practice. It's one thing to hear a lesson like this, and it's another to actually implement it. So that's where I want to say that this information for you is just an introduction. Okay, it is just the beginnings of starter tactics that you can use to sort of hack at this concept of self-sabotage and building your own self-concept of being large and in charge and owning your skills and growing your confidence. And while I hope that these starter tactics are things that you can employ immediately, honestly, I know that it takes time and focus and practice to really address saboteurism and help you rise up. So I want to talk to you now about how you can do this more directly, how you can work with me to more effectively rise up out of imposter syndrome and saboteurism so that you can feel confident and get on with living your big, bad, beautiful life. So I want to talk to you a little bit about my group coaching course called Completely Confident Leadership. It's a 5-month program that is inherently built to handle any sort of negative saboteurism or imposter syndrome that is holding you back. Completely confident leadership is about being a leader in the world, but we start with leading in our lives. We start with leading with a better self-concept and a better sense of self and increasing our own personal confidence. What is it? It is a course plus coaching to integrate these beliefs with trainings and practices until they're truly second nature. It is lifetime access to lessons that I've developed over 30 years of hiring, training, mentoring, coaching, managing women in leadership positions, knowing all of the places we tend to stub our toe or fall down, and give you the lessons that you need so that you can rise up. I actually have a 5-step process that I take us through the first parts of the course that help build this resonant, resilient self-concept that grows your confidence. And there is nothing like it. I have seen nothing like it out there. I have specific exercises and processes that we use individually with each person, me with you, so that you start to move into a level of self-awareness and self-management that feels so much better than just hacking it out or trying to get by on your wits' ends or just trying to outdo any sense of overwhelm or underperforming. That's the hardest way, doing it on your own and just trying to outwork your negative inner critic that tells you you're not doing enough, telling you you have to be more, try more, do more. That's not the way. The lessons might sound easy, but they're actually a little bit challenging to implement. And that's why we take our time. Over weeks of time, we implement one lesson, one exercise, and we start coaching on that each week to really integrate the lessons and embed the learning so that you build this nice, lovely foundation that you can then stand on and then start to lead from that space. So I'm talking kind of conceptually, but it's basically two halves. I talk about completely confident leadership. It's, you might think, how does anybody become completely confident? I'm talking about two halves that make a whole. Basically, self-awareness and self-management is one half, and then relationship awareness, social awareness, and relationship interpersonal management is the other half. And together, you become a complete leader that feels so much more free, so much more at ease, ready for promotion, ready to accept promotion, ready to have raises, to ask for raises, to get what you want out of your career and out of your life. Okay, so I've kind of described a little bit about what it includes. It includes this course curriculum you have lifetime access to and weekly group coaching to lock in the lessons. There are other things as well. We're in a private community that is like lush support with women just like you, super smart, super engaged in their world, and also has a tendency to tear them down. When you're in a community that feels like you can be candid and supported and you're not alone, it is so refreshing and so encouraging. So that's the third piece. There are some bonuses that I provide as well. I want to talk about right now this one that I discovered. It's like this little app that was really popular in the 90s called Voxer. I'm just showing it on my phone. All of my clients download this app on their phone, and it allows for walkie-talkie access to me throughout the 5 months of the course to be able to access me when you have a question, when you have an imposter syndrome meltdown, when you are implementing something and you want to you want to be reminded of a lesson, when you want to share a win. Today, I will say that I just went back and forth with one client who is just being given this new promotion to be the senior director, and she got the job description and she shared it with me, and she was really happy but nervous about the salary band. And we were able to go back and forth in real time with this voice and text walkie-talkie in between her receiving the information from her boss and then meeting with him to discuss her salary request. There's nothing like that, to have that kind of real-time support in your life. because I think that most of the things that arise for us aren't like these conceptual things, they're like real life challenges. I really like the Voxer support that allows me to provide support in the moment. I've had women call it a coach in their pocket. When you really want that support or that accountability or that sounding board or a best practices partner. So that's one huge bonus. Another is many of the women inside my community really stress out over doing public presentations or making project proposals or posting up in front of clients, basically speaking. I happen to also be a public speaking coach. And so, as part of a bonus within Completely Confident Leadership, I teach speaking tactics so that you can be clear and effective and persuasive, so that you can extricate mannerisms that are distracting, like ums and uhs, and hand motions that aren't supporting your topic. That's another bonus. On top of the weekly coaching, there are many women that have graduated from this course that are now part of an alumni program. They have sort of the 2.0 like version of the lessons that is going deeper or revisiting it from a different perspective and having special topics. I offer access to the alumni student calls when you're a regular student, so you can double up the coaching that you get every week. That means 2 coaching calls a week that you have access to be able to be inspired by your sisters and also just be coached on your own brain and your own limiting thoughts that are holding you back or that you need some help with in integrating the lessons. The last thing is that if you are an action taker and you book a consult with me before the end of this coming weekend, I have another really juicy bonus. When I onboard the women in my group, some of them choose this extra that I'm providing as part of this offer today, which is a personalized leadership assessment that gives you a pictogram of your leadership skill set, where you are naturally brilliant, where you are the bluebird or the goldfish, and also where you're sort of driving with your foot on the brake, where you're holding yourself back, where you have some trained tendencies that are yanking you off of being as big as you can be. When you see this clearly, when I'm able to show you your assessment and give you some personalized attention about how you can leverage your strengths more and reduce your reactive tendencies, you will have the key for how to enter my course and how to progress. It's like an assessment and a map all in one, so that you are able to leverage your own particular skill set through the course of this journey together. So how do you get started? I want to tell you the next steps that you should take is come to my website, which is www.joleader.com/apply. You'll see there all the details of the program. So I like to start each of my women off with a consult. So go to joleader.com/apply. At the very top of the page, you'll see a button that says book a call now, and that's how you get started. I look forward to seeing you then. For now, go well.